this video, I will look at some of the key aspects of the CAT4 reports within the group report for teachers and the individual student report for teachers. Now let's take an in-depth look at the report content. Here's a useful page of example scores with score descriptors. It's really important for anyone reading the report to understand the data in front of them, in particular the group report for teachers. This initial report provides useful distribution data for the school cohort compared to the national norm. Each battery is shown here. This gives an insight into whole school strengths and weaknesses compared against the national norm. One aspect to consider from this is resourcing. That is how to enable creating learning groups for students with similar reasoning types, as shown by the percentages within the various ability bands. The scatter graph report for the whole cohort gives a very clear visual representation of the student distribution, both in terms of actual standard age score levels and the relative difference in spatial and verbal scores. This relative difference is used to classify students in terms of their learning bias. This bias forms the basis of the narrative report we will see in the individual student report for teachers. To ensure that an individual's bias is recognised, this report lists the names of the students that fall within each of the 7 groups, from extreme verbal bias to extreme spatial bias. Bullet points giving possible characteristics of the type of bias are also given here. Implications for teaching and learning are further explored in the individual student report for teachers. It is important to remember that the bias must be considered alongside absolute standardized scores in the interpretation of student data. Here we can see benchmark indicators given for core Key Stage 2 subject areas. For each subject area, the indicators in the first column represent the 50th percentile of performance, and the indicators in the second column represent the 75th percentile of performance level of students in the past with the same ability score. The 75th percentile level should be considered challenging, as only 25% of students with that ability score in the past reach that performance level. The Gcse indicators are created as previously described and are available for a wide range of subject areas. They are displayed here for the new number system, but are also reported as grades. The indicators are not targets in themselves, but when taken with a wider knowledge of the individual, give a very useful benchmark. Also available to you are the chance graphs as a further breakdown to these grades. Indicators for A2, A-level and IB are also available. Data should be seen as benchmarking and the context of school and individual issues taken into account. If you list students by mean standard age score, then the group rank will be in descending order. If a score seems unexpectedly low, check that the student attempted all the questions. The mean standard age score is useful when considering how a student has performed across the range of abilities, all of which contribute to learning. However, a mean score may mask high or low scores in parts of CAT4. At the top of the first report in the individual report section, the area headed Scores gives data for all 4 batteries, where the group report for teachers has concentrated on the verbal spatial bias. Quantitative scores may be of particular interest in relation to possible mathematical performance comparisons. Spatial ability scores may be of particular interest in relation to STEM subjects. The scatter graphs gives the bias information for the individual student. The individual student report for teachers contains a very useful extended narrative section describing the student's particular bias and the implications for teaching and learning. This makes an excellent starting point in the process of personalising learning, considering a student's cognitive strengths and areas for development. Or, if using CAT4 as a placement assessment, then this is a useful commentary to provide to class teachers as the student enters the school. An individual's indicators are shown here in the form of a chances table. This is an excellent way of ensuring staff and students understand that although indicators are given as a benchmark, they are not limiting, and outcomes are still heavily influenced by factors specific to the student. CAT4 features reports for both the student and the student's parent or carer. Here, ability levels are given for the 4 parts of the CAT4. Bars represent the score level, but actual standard age scores and other statistical data are not given. The summary contains narrative generated from the student's learning bias and standard age score levels. It is written in a form suitable to suggest next steps and clear, helpful descriptions for the student, and in this example, parents. It is clear that the more we can actively engage all stakeholders in the learning process, the better. This report is particularly useful for parents, whether their child has just taken part in the admissions process for a school, or they are in school and receiving feedback on their child's CAT4 performance. Within the Senior Leaders Report and presentation, all the demographic data are displayed for the cohort. The monitoring of the performance of special focus groups is vital for identifying gaps. Obviously, this must be referenced to the student's ability. These graphs rely on fields being populated in the CSV bulk upload file. EAL tracking might be useful. If your school has large numbers of EAL students, it may be helpful to have a breakdown by nationality or other custom field. At Key Stage 2, cohort data are presented for the important subject areas required at the end of the primary phase. Here also, we show the percentage of the cohort likely to achieve the old level 4B or above, which is now linked to the new expected level of performance at the end of Key Stage 2. It should be remembered that these data represent likely levels based on previous, similarly scoring students and will need to be considered with professional knowledge of the individuals making up the group. At Key Stage 4, key performance data are displayed, here using grades. However, GCSE number levels are also shown. Thank you for listening. The next video focuses on the implications for teaching and learning.